In the struggle for survival, nature only rewards the winners. Imagine the ultimate survivor. Surely it would be strong, swift, and subtle of mind. A creature very much like ourselves. Proudly, we imagine ourselves above the rest of the animal kingdom, believing our design to be evolution's crowning glory.
Culturally, maybe we've been told that we are better than other organisms, or an evolutionary leap forward, or the top of the scale.
But in the game of life, many of Earth's most winning creatures have neither brawn, nor brain, nor speed. They are so different from us, we barely recognize them as animals. Yet, they are movers and shakers of their own domain.
They don't have any head, they don't have a brain, they don't seem to go old. They can live forever.
For more than 500 million years, they've endured and thrived. Could these unlikely characters turn out to be life's ultimate survivors? What can they teach us about the shape of life? Life on Earth has been evolving for almost 4 billion years, and we think we know its greatest achievement. Nurtured by a complex social system and driven by a restless intelligence, we have created culture and art, science and technology. We are amazing animals. Only we have the ability to reflect on ourselves and our role in the world. But do we really deserve to place ourselves at the top of the evolutionary ladder? Not according to Gail Ka'aiali'i, a scientist who is also an endurance athlete.
Paddles up! Go!
A world-class outrigger canoeist, she works hard each day to keep her body in top physical condition. Ka'aiali'i lives and trains in Hawaii, but she's won rowing events the world over. She knows that winning depends on the right combination of brain and brawn. So does our success as a species. Evolution has given us a superb body plan. Fast, efficient, and distinctly symmetrical. The basic design of the human body is bilateral. If you draw a line from head to foot, the left and right halves appear as mirror images of each other. To bring us news of the outside world, sophisticated sensory organs, nose, eyes, and ears are arranged symmetrically on either side. Our brains respond in an instant, evoking emotion and thought, directing our bodies to act. Nearly half our body is made of powerful muscles, which manipulate our intricate skeleton. Beating 100,000 times a day, our heart pumps blood continuously through miles of arteries and veins, bringing oxygen and nutrients to all the body's cells. Coordinating all this activity is the brain, which soaks up nearly 1/4 of the body's energy. All large active animals are built according to this same bilateral design, with sensitive, brainy heads and the internal machinery for quick motion. But is this the best of all animal designs? Do you have to be big, brainy, and fast to be successful? In the hidden ocean realms live creatures we would barely even recognize as animals. They have no heads or brains. Compared to us, they move in slow motion and sometimes hardly seem to move at all. But are they truly less successful than we are?
And it's Kate. You're going to hold on to that.
Gail Ka'aiali'i believes she knows the answer.
Okay, Mark's going to take the pictures. And remember to do them from as much in the center of the quadrant as you can.
Okay.
And then, guys, when we get to the spot and we lay the quadrant down, you're trying to figure out what species it is.
A distinguished teacher of marine biology, her explorations of the ocean give her a unique perspective on our own place in the animal kingdom.
See where we want to do that. And then what is the It's easy to see why people may think that we are better than other organisms, or an evolutionary leap forward, or the top of the scale. That's not a belief that's easy for me to see. In fact, I tend to believe otherwise.
Ka'aiali'i and her students will search the ocean floor for creatures many would consider bizarre. Animals entirely different from us, yet remarkably successful.
Guys, ready? Yeah. Let's get going. When you investigate the lives of other organisms and you see that each is interesting and wonderful, you start to realize that really the question of is anybody better than becomes moot, irrelevant. It's not something you would want to ask. You start wanting to ask, how do the others work? They're so neat.
When Ka'aiali'i began her career in marine biology, this high-energy athlete was attracted to a group of animals that barely seem alive at all. She fell in love with equinoderms. For her, strangely shaped animals like the sea cucumber and the spiky sea urchin became objects of fascination.
I study a group of animals called equinoderms, and they occur all over the world in oceans. If you first come up on an equinoderm, maybe you haven't seen one before, maybe you've heard of them, but you haven't seen one, you, first of all, might not know what it is. You might think it's a plant. You might think it's a flower. A lot of them are named after flowers. Maybe you know it's an animal, maybe you've heard of them, but then your mind might turn to what is the thing doing? It's really hard to relate to what they're doing because it might not be moving fast, because it doesn't have a face. The major reason I study equinoderms is that they are weird. They have a different way of living than I am used to. And if you look closely, they get weirder.
Even the most familiar of equinoderms can seem strange and alien. The sea star is a headless, faceless wonder, a collection of arms that forms a 5-pointed star. Like all echinoderms, its body is based on 5-part symmetry. In fact, every echinoderm is a variation on this 5-part body plan. Join the sea star's arms together and you get a surprising variation, the basic shape of its close relative, the sea urchin. The 5 arms have become a 5-part sphere. The sea urchin's mouth is hidden on its underside. Turn the urchin on its side and give its body a good stretch. You've created a sea cucumber. The 5-part sphere has become a 5-part tube. Under the surface, echinoderms are equally unusual. The sea star skeleton is nothing like our own. Just beneath the skin lies a latticework made up of thousands of bony platelets. They're woven together by minuscule muscles which can flex the arms in any direction. They have incredible strength and endurance. A special protein allows them to lock their arms in position effortlessly for hours, something our muscles could never do. Instead of a brain, echinoderms have a nerve ring, a living relay station. It acts to coordinate the movements of their arms. How do creatures built on such a simple design, so different from our own complex bodies, manage to survive and even thrive? For over 500 million years, they've evolved radical solutions to life's challenges. Their lineage may be ancient, but they are a modern-day evolutionary success.
You might think this animal is less than us. It is inferior. But once you start to see what they do, you realize how successful they are at meeting the same basic requirements for life that we meet, and that they do it just as well, but in a different way.
In the warm waters of Hawaii, Ka'aiali'i introduces her students to a sea urchin. It seems no more lively than a rock, but don't be fooled. Urchins can dominate and sometimes even destroy their environments. Urchins are grazers, munching their way through submarine pastures of plants and algae, and they do it in slow motion. Along the California coast, urchins can reach plague proportions. They have a voracious appetite for giant kelp. These emerald forests, lush citadels of life, are defenseless before the slow and steady onslaught of an urchin army. Seen in time-lapse, urchins spring into eerie life, devouring anything edible in their path. Urchins don't have eyes, so they can't see where they're going. But they do have sensory tube feet, which wave to and fro, tasting the water for anything good to eat. Their versatile tube feet not only carry them over the subterranean plains, they can even snag drifting bits of kelp. The feet act like a bucket brigade, passing the food from one sticky sucker to the next, pulling the meal relentlessly toward the powerful, star-shaped jaw that awaits underneath. The sheer force of its 5 razor-sharp teeth can shatter a grain of sand. It makes short work of the tender kelp, neatly scissoring it into bite-sized pieces. To us, they may appear to be curiosities, resting motionless on the kelp, but they are actually gorging themselves. Although they eat so slowly, we must speed up the action to see it clearly. An uncontrolled urchin population can have a devastating impact over time. Every hour, a lettuce-sized piece of kelp can disappear down those star-shaped jaws. When urchin populations are high, the persistent nibbling of their armies can mow down an entire kelp forest within a matter of months. Without the kelp, a vast forest of life is turned into a barren plain. An eerie tribute to the inexorable power of a tiny, brainless creature that lives life in slow motion. Like their cousins, the urchins, sea cucumbers have a powerful impact on their world. These vacuum cleaners of the deep lumber across sea floors the world over. In the deep sea, these unassuming creatures make up the vast majority of animals on the ocean floor. Everywhere they go, these animals help themselves to a banquet hidden in the sand. Specially modified tube feet continuously shovel sand into their mouths. Sand rich in organic matter, which they digest. The leftovers are ejected in the familiar manner. Legend has it that every grain of ocean sand has, at one time or another, passed this way. Sea cucumbers often dine openly on the sea floor, though their soft, fleshy bodies would appear to offer little resistance to any would-be attacker. So how do they defend themselves? The truth is, they have few predators. Some simply taste bad. Bold patterns help advertise the noxious toxins which lace their bodies. Unlike urchins, sea cucumbers have no pointy quills to protect them, just fleshy knobs that cover their skin. Still, when provoked, some sea cucumbers can unleash an entirely unique defense. Until it was disturbed, this weapon was actually part of the sea cucumber's breathing apparatus. Ejected from its anus, these thin white strands swell to 20 times their original size, packing a potent mix of poison and glue. Every survivor needs a good defense. The smallest equinoderms, the brittle stars, have managed to use their fragility for self-protection. When threatened, these spidery creatures can actually jettison their arms as decoys. These most agile of echinoderms often make up in numbers for what they lack in size. Brittle stars can cover vast expanses of the sea floor, forming a fuzzy living carpet. But though they may appear more like plants than animals, their writhing bodies betray their true nature. For these are not flowers of the deep. These are patient predators. They catch their prey by waving their feathery arms through the water, plucking plankton from the current. They may be small and strange and rule an abyss we can only visit, but echinoderms are proven survivors. For more than 500 million years, they've been thriving here. All that time, they've been developing their own unique and successful approach to life.
They are exciting, they are wonderful, but it takes some time and some patience to understand them. But the more you look, the neater they get. You really have to watch. They really don't give away their secrets easily.
Watching patiently has taught scientists like Ka'aiali'i to respect the unique ways in which echinoderms fulfill life's basic requirements. But how do they measure up against animals much closer to us on the evolutionary scale? Could an echinoderm really be a fierce predator? Or fight for its share of food and space? Are they capable of having social lives? What are their secret worlds really like? How could they ever do anything to compare to this? California's Big Sur coast is the scene of one man's quest to discover the true nature of the echinoderm. John Pierce has been studying echinoderms for more than 40 years. Captivated by their ancient origins and alien beauty, he has spent decades combing tide pools for specimens. For years, he believed that they were simple creatures, without the capacity for social lives.
It's been thought for a long, long time. In fact, I think from the very beginning of people looking at echinoderms, back to Aristotle, that these animals are hardly animals. How can they have much of a social system if they don't have a brain? Pretty obvious. If they don't have a brain, they can't have much more social activity than a tomato plant.
The logic of it seemed unassailable. At least it did, until a few decades ago. That was when John Pierce met a man who revealed to him the secret lives of the slow and spiny. Don Wauber is a man who's followed his dream. He retired early. That was when his real work began. A sculptor, he slices through rock to find his vision. But it is the sea, not the stone, that has laid claim to his heart.
When I had a chance to get out of the printing business, I decided the whole rest of my life would be devoted to the water. And it's been ever since, a love affair with the ocean.
For years, Wobber has spent his days diving and exploring the oceans. He plucks jade from the ocean floor, carving it to reveal the beauty of the form hidden within. But it is not his love of art that inspires his underwater adventures. It is his love of animals that calls him into the deep. Sea stars in particular are his passion. At age 45, he began photographing and studying them in earnest. Wobber became intrigued by the statuesque poses that sea stars would strike. He wondered what their posturing meant and formed a simple and ingenious plan to discover just what the sea stars were doing.
I put a NISA camera in the rocks to steady it. I'd pile rocks around it, and then I could leave the camera there. So when I use this time-lapse movie, then all of a sudden you take picture, 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 picture. And when you project it, they go very fast, and I could finally see a sequence. So then I said, my God, this is what they're doing, you know, and this is how they behave. And it looked beautiful when it run at the fast speed.
Time-lapse photography allowed Wobber to witness the vibrant lives of equinoderms for the first time. He found that they interacted with each other just as other animals do. They just do it in a different time frame. To John Pierce, Wobber's films were a revelation.
When I first saw Don's films, I was just stunned. I just could hardly believe my eyes.
Here we go. Okay, yeah, now they're going right at it.
My opinion was turned upside down in the sense of suddenly you have animals which are interacting with each other. Chasing each other. Actually having complex behaviors.
What you really appreciate with these kind of movies is how much action there is. I mean,
When Wobber began to analyze their behavior, he was shocked to discover that the sea stars were actually fighting for dominance, just as lions or hyenas do. Not only do they fight for dominance, they do it through ritualized wrestling bouts.
Now you'll see some of these where they're really pushing against each other, like wrestling.
The struggle begins as the sea stars size up their opponents.
You'll see animals coming up to each other and raise up their rays, and almost like they're looking at each other. And it looks like they're sizing each other up to see who's the biggest or who's in charge.
Jockeying for position, the combatants try to get the upper hand. Eventually, they will lock arms, each trying to pin its opponent. Wobber believes that the sea star that manages to come out on top will enjoy a dominant position until the wrestlers meet again.
And the one that had the direct right toward the other one retreated.
When fights occur over food, he found that the animal first on the prize usually wins. Apparently, even among sea stars, possession is 9/10 of the law.
One on the food always won. Well, statistically speaking.
Perched atop the cliffs of California's Big Sur is a special laboratory where the secret lives of echinoderms are coming to light.
Okay, let's put some of these in here now.
Here, scientists work with shape-of-life filmmakers to capture the behavior of these little-known creatures on film.
We'll stick them together and see how long it takes them to spread out.
These are animals still shrouded in mystery.
Well, they really got some great shots.
How can they help us understand the possibilities of life on Earth?
If you can just put a couple down in front of the lens there, and that sandy bit, right?
What can we learn from them? What ancient secrets do they harbor?
A lot of questions which are barely even asked yet, much less starting to look at. One of the things which is really fascinating about echinoderms, they don't seem to go old. You know, you can hardly know what to ask. They can live forever. The only thing that kills a sea star is physical or disease, but they don't just grow old. Why not? They also, some sea stars can regenerate their whole body from one part of the ray. Just take a little ray, cut it off, and the whole thing will grow on. How do they do that?
Chuck Baxter is the senior scientist at this filming facility.
There, it's starting to pull away.
Echinoderms have a host of questions that are only beginning to be investigated, especially in terms of their behavior.
Shape-of-life cameras are capturing sea stars and their behavior in ways never before seen. Close up, you can see the spines that push up under the skin of echinoderms. The delicate red sacs between the white spines are skin gills used for breathing. The movements of sea stars are also being revealed with unprecedented clarity. Echinoderms move and feed like no other animals on Earth. They use remarkable organs, completely unique in the animal kingdom, hydraulically powered tube feet. The tube feet of sea stars are inflated by water, drawn into the body through a single opening called a sieve plate. The water fills the 5 radial canals which run down the length of the arms, forming a hydraulic system. The water is stored in little muscular bulbs. When a bulb contracts, it forces water into the elastic tube foot, extending it. Muscles on the foot swing it in the direction the sea star wants to move. Sea stars can move equally well in any direction, but they must coordinate the movement of thousands of feet. Used together, they have incredible strength. Clustered at the tip of each arm are special sensory tube feet that taste the water, seeking food or sensing danger. The tip of each arm is also equipped with a light-sensing organ, seen here as a red dot. This receptor cannot form images, but it can sense light and darkness. Although their sensory system may seem simplistic compared to ours, it hasn't stopped the sea star from being a fearsome predator. But few have witnessed them in action until now. In the murky depths off the California coast, sea stars are on the prowl. They're heading for the shallows, where untold generations have sought their prey. They do not shrink from the jetsam of human industry. They embrace it. In fact, sea stars benefit from the presence of humans. Their favorite prey does not live here on the shifting sands of the bottom. The sea stars will find their next meal higher up on the pilings of a man-made pier. A sea star that is willing to scale these heights will find a banquet. High on the pilings, closer to the water's surface, is a sumptuous reward, a feast of mussels. The pilings provide a solid surface to which whole colonies of mussels cling. The stage is set for an ancient drama. Guided by their knowledge of sea stars, Wobber and Pierce also arrive at the killing fields. In order to capture the hunt in time-lapse, they have brought along a team of expert cinematographers. Time-lapse photography reveals their secret reality. Like an advancing army, the sea stars move into position, slowly but surely working their way up toward their victims. The mussels cannot run or fight. All they can do is hide within their shells as their killers crawl over their bodies. Sensory tube feet sweep over the tightly packed mass of shells, searching for any gap in the mussel's defenses. Settling on its victim, the sea star hunkers down and begins its attack. The first wave of the assault begins with the tube feet, which use hydraulic pressure to pry open any gaps in the mussel's shell. Next, the sea star deploys its most unusual weapon, its stomach, which moves out of its body to digest its prey alive. Even in time-lapse, it is hard to see the sea star's attack. But a miniature camera tucked within the mussel's shell gives us the first look ever at the carnage that unfolds here every day. Once the tube feet have physically breached the mussel's defensive line, the sea star's translucent stomach begins the final assault. The animal actually pushes its stomach inside the mussel's shell, unfolding like a fatal flower. The stomach unleashes a volley of chemical weapons, digestive juices that dissolve the mussel's soft pink flesh. All that's left is a nutrient-rich soup, a broth that's quickly absorbed by the sea star. Having assimilated the mussel, the sea star's stomach pulls away, and the animal moves on, leaving behind an empty shell. Without the benefit of speed, brains, or brawn, sea stars are amazingly successful predators, hunting with efficiency any lion would envy. The life and death dramas of sea stars unfold before our very eyes, but so slowly we don't recognize them. Even when they appear to be frozen in time, they are fighting hard to survive. But speed up the action, and you can see how the whiff of a few tantalizing molecules sends a wave of excitement through a sea star community. They sniff out the source, converging on the carcass of a fish. Like vultures of the sea, they fight for a share of the gruesome prize. Their efficiency is impressive, but like scavengers everywhere, they scatter before the approach of a top predator. This is Pycnopodia, a giant among sea stars. It can have more than 20 arms and grow larger than a manhole cover. It is clearly recognized by the other animals in this community as a force to be reckoned with.
Anybody who watches them when they're foraging realizes that they are a major force within the kelp forest community. Everything in their path that can move is getting out of the way. They are essentially like the lions in the Serengeti in the sense that all the prey species around them know they're there and know when they're preying.
As Pycnopodia makes its way among the rocks, it picks up the trail of two snails. Realizing they are under attack, the snails make a run for their lives. Finding itself in Pycnopodia's clutches, one snail desperately tries to twist itself free. It escapes, but not for long. Caught in Pycnopodia's fatal embrace, the snail will be swallowed whole. It will take days for it to be digested. Giving the other snail another chance at winning the game of survival. Pycnopodia dines on everything and anything it can catch, from the incredibly edible abalone to the tastiest of worms. Its victims are overpowered by thousands of wrestling tube feet. But sea stars have other weapons. Nestled among the spines are tiny pincers. Operated by minuscule muscles, they are a living toolkit. Pincers of different sizes are available for different jobs. Snaring food is always at the top of the list. This worm was snagged by a single miniature pincer, but it's enough. Pycnopodia forces the worm to its stomach, where it will be liquefied alive. Passed along a bucket brigade of tube feet, the worm slowly loses its battle to survive. Echinoderms show us that ours is not the only way to be successful as an animal. But are they merely an evolutionary side trip? A detour on the road to us, How did these creatures evolve in the first place? Some clues to this mystery are being uncovered along the rugged coastline of southern England. Here, wind and wave eat away at the rock, uncovering fossils that last saw the light of day millions of years ago. Echinoderms played a pivotal role in that ancient world. Paleontologist Andrew Smith is helping to reconstruct their story.
You've got a sea urchin?
Oh, and a little sea urchin, Andy, considering.
Echinoderms have such an unusual body plan, you might think that it was just a one-off somewhere. It's an experiment that didn't go anywhere. But that's quite wrong. Here we go. Oh, complete. Excellent. When we get that back, it should clean up nicely and we'll be able to see the details. Right.
From the evidence he's gathered from around the world, Smith suspects that echinoderms helped define a dramatic turning point in animal evolution. At the Natural History Museum in London, Smith uses fossils to look back through time. What he's seeing is a remarkable story, filled with dramatic twists and turns. At the dawn of animal life, there were only three basic kinds of animals. There were sponges, cnidarians, which resembled flowers, and flatworm-like creatures. But then, in a geological blink of an eye, a bizarre menagerie of creatures appeared. Many of them were large, active, and fast. They had heads and centralized brains perched at one end of their bilateral bodies. Evolution had struck upon a new design that would have great success and eventually lead to us. But there were some animals that soon abandoned this bilateral path. They reverted to a round body and gave rise to the first echinoderms.
A lot of people would think that evolution is leading to animals like ourselves, with big brains, eyes, lots of sensory perception. But for paleontologists, evolution looks very different from that.
These modern crinoids closely resemble the first echinoderms. While other creatures began evolving heads, brains, and limbs, echinoderms turned down a very different evolutionary path. Resembling plants more than animals, early echinoderms opted for a sedentary life, firmly anchored on the ocean floor. While other animals were out hunting their food, ancient echinoderms let their meal come to them. They spread their arms against the current, snagging food with their agile tube feet. Some were the giants of their day. Fossils reveal they could grow 3 times as tall as the fearsome dinosaur T-Rex. Over the millennia, this basic echinoderm body plan blossomed into a spectacular diversity of more active animals. Creatures that would learn to move, graze, even hunt and kill.
Echinoderms have survived 500 million years. They've got through numerous mass extinctions. They live from the poles to the equator. They're exceptionally successful. It's simply wrong to think that evolution favors one path over another. And I think it's much better to think of the tree of life as a bush with lots of branches coming out in all directions, each of them leading to a form which is specialized for its own particular mode of life and doing extremely well.
Animal evolution has taken many roads on planet Earth. Perhaps we shouldn't ask which road is best, but how each leads to a unique approach to life. After all, these are wonderful creations. Animals radically different from us, but no less successful at surviving.
Equinoderms teach us that you don't need eyes. You don't need ears. You don't need to be able to run fast to be a successful organism. You don't even need a brain.
It is the survivors who write evolution's history and who fashion its future. No matter what lifestyle it has adopted, every animal is uniquely designed to win at the game of survival. Every creature alive today, regardless of whether it's a jellyfish, sea star, insect, or vertebrate, each in its own right is one of life's ultimate survivors.